Kevin, you want to announce the
Sure.
start of the meeting?
Oyez, all persons having business for the Cyrus body drawn near you will be heard. The Honorable Stephen Johnson presiding. All rise. All set. Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, thanks everybody for coming to the rainy April CEDA meeting. Quite a change in weather. It always does affect EV driving too. You'll notice efficiency goes down especially when it's dumping down rain so torrentially. That really does make a difference. Well, we have had a start of the car show season basically. And I think next month we'll plan to be back here again at MASA, but then starting in June, we'll plan to be back at the parking garage in the New Village, where we can have lots of the cars shown and hang out around our cars and everything. And so we'll do that for the summer months. But starting right off, we had our Bellevue College show yesterday, and a bunch of us were there. We had 11 vehicles. Let's see, where's your laptop? So we can go through. So we can go through the pictures. We had 2 conversions. Larry Ryan's S10 EV, which he needed to actually charge, and we're able to do that from the 240 volt outlet. They had us back in the main courtyard, which is really nice. And then Charlie's BMW C3. You want to move to the next?
Let me just advance through here. Sorry. Well, it's not working.
The down arrow.
I did the down arrow.
Then just wait a second.
Oh, I see.
The side
I tried.
What is that little thing on the side?
That's your little mouse. There you go. Now up down.
What if you click on it with the mouse and then try the arrow?
See it.
No, I think that's what if you click on the picture and then try clicking the arrow keys to move to others?
There you go. What you do? Just do
Oh.
it slowly.
Okay.
Do it back up. Do that again. Quick, a few more times.
There we go. Okay, so yeah, Larry had a great setup with his car. I don't know that much about it though.
All right.
How we did this.
I guess I can.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So after my email about the different Marine Code adapters, Larry made an adapter for his vehicle to charge, and it worked successfully. So that was good. Then
Yes.
quite a number of them going through the inlet on his car. And nowadays, Larry's conversion was done many years ago. It's an early conversion that started out as lead acid and has been updated to lithium. But it's still a pretty low voltage conversion, as I recall, 144 or 156 volts max. So it doesn't have quite the performance of newer conversions. And he did it before the J1772 standard had been put out. So he actually I used to make little J1772 adapters, and he bought one from me, which he uses to use public charging stations. But so he had put like an L630, I think, twist lock plug, like a lot of us would use those types of plugs on the vehicle. Nowadays, J1772 inlets are quite ubiquitous, and so I would highly recommend that for your onboard or for the inlet on your car. And then I also highly recommend, unless you're doing a race car or something, that you have the onboard charger. That way you can plug into any charging station. You don't have to bring around your own charger. Anyway, we also had Mark's big GMC Denali EV, which I just love the Silverado EVs and Denali EVs because not only are they a full-size, huge truck, but they have some of the most range of any electric vehicles out there with a big 212 kilowatt-hour pack. So that's always pretty impressive. You know, people are like, well, I don't know if I can get an EV because of whatever. But so that there will do anything that most other pickup trucks would do only thing I would say where it would have a disadvantage to other pickup trucks is if you were doing regular interstate trips, like for your business and hauling equipment or something. Although, as Mark proved and presented last year, you took a 13,000 mile trip all over the country towing a big trailer, so it can be done. Yeah. Then we had Mark's Model X, which was always a big hit with the Falcon Wing doors. And this gentleman drove all the way up from just south of Portland, Oregon in his new Highlands Tesla Model Y. Oh. And he did not have to stop to charge once. So that's pretty cool. Just a straight shot from south of Portland up to here.
But then he charged at the show.
He did charge a little at the show, because he's like, I'm going to have to hit a supercharger after the show. So after Larry was done, he plugged into the outlet as well. So the show is always really excellent because it's right in front of the Student Union building in the main courtyard on campus. And so hundreds of students and faculty come through at every passing period. And so the time just flew for all of us that were there because you're just talking with people all the time. Charlie's BMW conversion is always one of the biggest hits. And then we had 2 other Model Ys and also Ryan's Cybertruck, and Chad Schwitter's brought his Bright Drop, which is also pretty cool. And maybe at the previous August SELA meeting, you saw his green one, since he had that as a loaner, and this is his actual one that they were fixing again. So he's made 2 round-trip trips, I think, in it, or 2 trips from Detroit back to Seattle in the Bright Drop camper van. And it legitimately gets 272-mile range at freeway speeds in realistic driving. So it's pretty impressive. It basically uses, it's made by General Motors and basically uses the Silverado EV/Denali powertrain. So it has a big battery pack. So despite its horrible aerodynamics and heavy weight and big size, it is still able to do almost 300 miles on a charge.
But not the biggest.
No, it isn't the biggest battery pack.
Yeah.
And then,
Oh, that sign there, I was gonna mention that, was one of many Earth Day events that are Earth Month events that are happening at Bellevue College, and so they put us on their list, which was really cool.
and they were giving out some trees as well. Mark is making his own camper out of the Model X with a bed and the folding seats there. And then, yeah, we had everyone sprung. There was a Polestar, and so we were showing information.
Showing you how to set up your car for a car show. All the good things in there.
Plug in America gave us these handouts as well as some other swag that we were able to hand out. But this is the latest 2026 EV Buyer's Guide. It also has a section for plug-in hybrids. And it starts off in ascending order of price from the cheapest to the most expensive. So the Chevy Bolt, and this is for US electric cars, so the Chevy Bolt is coming in at the cheapest so far at the starting base price of just about $29,000. And then the Nissan Leaf is $29,990. Hey, Steve, good to see you. And so the Nissan Leaf comes in at $29,990. The Toyota BZ, $34,900, and then the Chevy Equinox, which Chevy Equinox still, I think, is your best dollar per amount of range that you get. It's about the best deal for how much range you get because it has 300 to 320 mile range. What would you say is your range?
I've gotten up to 330.
Yeah, so pretty darn good. Anyway, I'll pass this around, and at future car shows, we still have a big stack of them that we'll be able to hand out to people. But it's a nice job Plug in America did, and it's all updated. And then I had my Nissan Leaf as well. Did you get a picture of that? It was in the background of one of them. It was just next to the Polestar. Oh, you can see the back of it. Anyway, it was actually a pretty big hit. I opted to bring the Leaf because it's an accessible car for students. And so I actually got a lot of people talking to me about it, as well as another faculty member who had a Leaf and was wondering about the battery degrading and what should she do and stuff. And so anyway, we had just lots of good conversations. I'll be sharing a little later about reviving that Leaf with a newer battery, and it's pretty cool. But my recommendation is always for people, if you're getting a used EV, that guide there is great for if you're buying a new car. If you're going to get a used EV, if your budget is even less than the $28,000 or so for a new EV, then I say if your budget's between $0 to $5,000, you can get an old Nissan Leaf or a Mitsubishi i8. And they're pretty reliable, but they're going to have limited range. If your budget's say $5,000 to $10,000, you can probably get a Bolt, and that's about your best. A used Bolt is going to give you 240-mile range. It's almost a guarantee that its battery was replaced in the last few years under the recall, so that's pretty fantastic. And then if your budget's $15,000, you can probably get a Tesla Model 3. Any of those cars, the Leaf, the Model 3, the Bolt, they're pretty reliable, and so they have a good track record. Older Model S's can be found even cheaper, under $10,000 now, but I would not
There's a reason
recommend them
for
because
that.
of the reliability. Yeah.
Is that mostly certain drivetrains that have that problem, or?
That is one problem, but all of them have the battery problem as well. So there are a myriad of problems, as well as the door handle problems, and all. There are sadly just a myriad of problems with the early Model S's, which are the ones that are typically the cheapest.
Easy roll doors.
And yeah. Whereas the Model 3s, one thing will be interesting, time will tell, because some of the Model S issues didn't show up until later, or weren't, I think, brought to everyone's attention as much until later, just because they were still under warranty, so people didn't talk about it. They're like, oh, well, yeah, I had that replaced, but it didn't cost me anything, so you didn't hear a lot about it. Now that they're out of warranty, you hear more about it. The Model 3s, maybe we'll see more failures, but a number of people in this room have Model 3s. They've been pretty darn reliable. The newer the year you can get, generally the better. I know Ron's had a few little things on his.
Yeah, I think I've probably had every known problem. A big one is if you get a late 2020 or newer, it will have a heat pump, and you will have an issue that will sideline your car from driving due to loss of isolation from the ceramic heater. That is just a known thing that will wear on the older cars, which might have. So eventually, the contactors would close and it wouldn't drive until the heater was replaced.
And, yeah, so that show, Bellevue.
We're doing what we're calling a switch rally. We have about 20 high school students from Bellingham College and about 20 high school students from, I can never remember if it's Friday Harbor or Oak Harbor, off one of the islands, coming down. They're bringing their electric vehicle that they've built, and then we're going to have some competitions, and we have 2 at the college as well that we're going to have out there. And if a few people want to show up and hang out and show some students their electric cars, high school students, we're hoping to have probably hopefully about 30 to 40 high school students, and then we'll have a handful of college students there as well. I kind of have a spot set aside for a little car show, and then we'll have the events happening and let some high school students know what their future could look like if they choose to get into electric vehicles.
And do you have a preference, like on conversions, if we're choosing what vehicle to bring?
Not really. I mean, we have plenty of space. If 20 cars showed up, 50 cars showed up, we have space. But our goal this year is to not make it real big. If it goes really well, we'd like to maybe do a little bit more with it. But we have some backing from a couple of Switch, which is what the company that makes the vehicles that we're going to be driving. They're backing us a little bit, and then we're in contact with Foundry 10 also.
Oh, cool.
And they haven't haven't committed anything yet, but they've been talking with us.
So, yeah, so for those who missed last month's SEVA meeting, he did a great presentation on their whole program. But the Green River College in Auburn has an electric vehicle technician program now. And it's pretty fantastic. When will enrollment start for next year?
April 30th will be our next enrollment time for fall quarter.
Okay, so actually coming right up.
So coming up real soon. So we do our fall quarter enrollment before summer quarter because students aren't there during summer.
Okay.
But it's open to anybody that wants to take the class. It's not super in-depth engineering level EV stuff. It's more isolation testing, battery building, component identification, level 1, level 2 type stuff. And we do talk about some conversion stuff as well.
And what was the cost and the nights per week?
We're doing it Monday and Wednesday night from 5 to 9. Sometimes it goes a little bit longer depending on what we're doing. And the total tuition works out after fees and everything works out to be just under $1,000. But as part of the fees, every student gets their own pair of high voltage gloves and leathers and everything, so that we don't have any communal stuff. Equipment, yes, not personal stuff.
And they've got a pretty good setup with stuff, so I think that's a pretty good deal. And it's something set up so that even if you have a day job, you can do it in the evenings, since it's evening classes.
Yeah, and that's kind of the goal.
And then Charlie will give a little pitch on the Greenwood Car Show. So upcoming Greenwood Car Show. Greenwood is always our biggest car show on Greenwood Avenue. Literally thousands of people, and we want to make SEVA have quite a presence there again with as many EVs as possible. Take it away, Charlie.
Yeah, so this year the car show's on June 27th. And so we've got quite a while before the show. I thought I might as well get started on signing people up for the show. So I actually am going to be out of town for a couple of weeks, but hopefully maybe tonight or tomorrow I can send out an email with the files so people can start putting their names down for if you plan to attend. As in past years, I think I will go ahead and register the people who put their names on the list for the show and pay the registration fee to make sure that we're all registered under the SEVA group so we can all park together. And I can get a good head count for the coordinator so they know how much space to block off for us to park at. We'll most likely be in the same area in front of the Ken's Market, which I think is a good location for us. But I guess, we were talking a little bit about whether or not we pay for the whole cost of the show, or I guess for simplicity, it's easier if I go ahead and register and do the payments. But, if people want to donate to the SEVA Treasury, it's easy to do. Go to the SEVA webpage. There's a page for how to donate. Right now we're using PayPal, and you can just donate any amount. Just as an FYI, it's a $25 registration fee for the Greenwood Car Show and a $2.50 administration fee. So for every entrant, SEVA is basically paying $27.50 per car. So
We want as many there as possible.
yeah, and so any amount that you want to kick into SEVA is appreciated, but not mandatory, I guess I would say.
So the 28th.
27th,
Friday.
June 27th is a Saturday.
I've got a new entry, a friend of mine, Brian Lowe. Anybody that listens to classical music, the name Brian Lowe might mean something to you. He drives a bright red IRA, but he has a friend with a blue Porsche Taycan. And he's been driving me twice. He wants to be there. So
Great.
I've given him this address today, but he couldn't make this meeting. But I'm sure he'll make the next few meetings between now and June 27th. So that's one more portion.
And you should reach out to the guy with the Porsche
Yeah,
version again, because that was an
Peter-
impressive one.
Peter
Yeah.
Lee, I actually, and also, the two with the orange,
Yeah,
The
it's
Lotus?
Yeah.
Lotus or
Carmen
whatever?
Ghia, yeah.
Oh, okay.
The Carmen Ghia is always a fun car.
And we see also need to get your laptop on the internet, because when it starts at the presentation, I like to show a list that's on the website. I had a bunch of technical difficulties, both with receiving the laptop and even worse with my phone. So
Oh, really?
unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to share my pictures and cool video that my brother's presentation was about from China. He just got back from Shenzhen and took a whole bunch of stuff. So I'll re-show that, once I get that figured out, I'll show that at next month's meeting, we'll plan. But I have a backup presentation on the Leaf battery pack swap.
Stephen, can I add a bit about car shows before we're done?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, because that's not the only car show this year. All the board members have been asked to organize a car show, and since I'm secretary, I've been trying to get together something, and I finally talked to the director of the Burien Father's Day car show. And yes, they're willing to set aside a club corner for EVs.
Oh, great.
Yay, they have not been willing to do that in the past, and so finally talked her into it. That's gonna be Father's Day, June 21st, so the week before Greenwood. So anybody down in the south end who would like to come in, I'd love to get at least half a dozen cars together. I hope Mark will be there,
We'll give you a location yet in Burien, or?
It's on 152nd and 6th Avenue, so it takes up about 6 blocks, actually, so.
No, I'm in for the EVs, that's what I was wondering.
Well, I'm hoping we get at least half a dozen. They didn't say how many they would commit
Oh,
to
I see,
space
okay.
for,
Or
but,
where. That's
yeah, exactly, but we're gonna arrange that.
Okay, good.
So I'm hoping to get people signed up for that too, so if you can come to the south end, and I'll recruit through the newsletter as well. But then I wanted to add one more thing that I thought was really great about the car show yesterday, which even though it rained a little bit, that was okay. It worked great. Mostly it didn't rain. But I got a chance to talk to some good people. And one of the important ones was, and I think Mark sent her to me, and several of us talked to the director of the sustainability office at Bellevue College. Her name's Ann. She has a 2024 Model Y, so that's great. However, she doesn't know very much about it. Apparently her parents bought it for her, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so she had never used cruise control, stuff like that.
That's right, and she was scared to go to Whidbey Island because
Didn't think
how
she'd make
she was
it.
gonna say, come on, you got a Model Y long range, you can make it, don't worry.
Yeah, and so, but her biggest concern was that her boyfriend told her she has to get rid of it.
Oh,
Because he
no.
is so anti-Elon, and she just said, you have to get rid of it. And that's the point of being, splitting up about it. I mean, seriously. So she wanted to ask my opinion, and so I said, I would be glad to give you some other options or ideas that you can run past him that might help bring him along. For one, I said, Tesla's not gonna stay the same. It's gonna change. Never know what'll happen with Elon. He could be in jail tomorrow. Who knows? So, and so that was one thing, but also, I pointed out there's some stickers you can put on the back. Mark has a good one on the back of his car. I put a bunch of pride stickers on the back of my car because that's directly in opposition to his anti-trans and pride ideas. But that kind of gives you the idea that you're not supporting him, but supporting the technology. And I said, it's trying to weigh the different priorities. Is it better for the environment? Is the environmental end of it going to be better for you, or is the guy, the CEO, going to win out? Should we let him win out? That's probably not what we want to do. So I hope there's different ways of looking at it. I thought it was a really good opportunity to talk to people about things like that, and I hope that at other car shows we'll be able to address those concerns as well. So those of you who own Teslas, we should probably put together some talking points or something. All right.
Yeah, and I would say too, I always encourage people, we don't know the political leanings of a bunch of the other CEOs. We just happen to for that. So you don't know what else you're supporting if you buy a different one. I say make your decision based on what's good for you. And Teslas are some of the best vehicles, depending on your price range and what the vehicle is. So you want to do what's best for your life. And all electric vehicles are good for the environment. So CETA supports every electric vehicle and wants to see people with EVs. And speaking of EVs and EV sales and the world, how many of you have seen gas prices? I mean, one nice thing about driving an EV is we don't really have to keep up with it or care about that so much. But holy smoke, I live out in Maple Valley, and I drove by and seeing $7.40 for diesel was the highest I saw, and normal gasoline over $6 a gallon.
See that in Woodinville too, over 7,000.
Yeah, so pretty extreme. Clearly, the Strait of Hormuz issues in the Middle East, where so much of the global oil supply is coming out of the Middle East, is causing a big headache. And the other nice thing that always I think we can remember and talk to other people about as a reason for owning EVs is that EVs allow you, wherever you live, to be a lot more energy independent because electricity is not limited to one power source like gasoline and diesel. I mean, gasoline and diesel, you can't make them from a bunch of different things. It only comes from oil that you pull out of the ground, and there's a limited supply of that, and there's a limited number of countries in the world that have it. And so with electricity, there are many, many ways of producing it, and that's one of the things that won me over to electric vehicles early on, as I saw, well, we're not going to have an issue running out of electricity. You got solar, wind, nuclear, geothermal, natural gas turbines, coal, nuclear, yeah, like there's so many. Hydroelectric power, which our grid here in Washington State is a majority of it. And there's just so many ways, yes.
Yeah, and I think another really fun fact to bring up at cocktail parties is that it takes a lot of electricity to produce.
Yes.
A great cartoon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in addition to the gas that they burn, they're also using electricity.
Just to refine it, yeah. And hydrogen as well. To make hydrogen, typically it comes, the fastest way to make it is from natural gas, but everybody talks about, well, electrolysis would be super clean, you can get it from water, then true, but again, then the amount of electricity that goes in to make that versus just getting the electricity from another source and putting it into a battery.
And we need water for other things like irrigation and houses.
Well, one thing we ran into is, oil travels at about the speed of a bicycle from Hormuz. And so the pipeline hasn't really shut off for the U.S. yet. They figure about tomorrow is when the first shipment will be missed in the U.S. But in Southeast Asia, it's already, the pipeline's empty from the Arabian area. And the price of gasoline there is more than $10 a gallon.
But we're a net exporter of petroleum.
But we still accept it from the Persian Gulf.
In small amounts, but it's a financial thing because it's a global market and Trump can't prevent the export of American fuel.
And also, we have the wrong refineries for our crude.
Light crude, heavy crude.
That's true, there's a lot of different types of crude.
Our refineries are all built up for heavy, so the light that we pump, our refineries can handle. Another thing on the electric source, it's always regionally local, right? We don't ship electricity around the world, so.
Yeah, electricity. And of course, what I always advocate is the best thing is that you put up solar panels or a wind turbine or micro hydro if you have a creek on your property. Like, if you create your own electricity and then you buy an electric car, how sweet is that? And what are the chances? None of us are probably going to be Jed Clampett and discover oil in our backyard, but everybody has a roof if you have a house and the sun falls on it whether you like it or not. So why not use that? And if everybody did that, imagine how much more resilient we would be to world events, and as well as just how clean it would be for the air, because that's even more direct. If it's coming off of your own solar roof and going right into your car, that's even more direct than going over the tower.
For what it's worth, did you want to try it at a smaller scale? you have an e-bike. You know, for those of us who've gotten a little older and a little heavier than we used to be, but still like to nothing.
Yeah.
But the e-bikes, you know, they use an order of magnitude less energy than an EV does. So, you know, a balcony-sized few hundred watt solar array and maybe a kilowatt worth of old lithium iron phosphate cells.
Yeah.
And you've got enough to make your EV fully solar powered. And I've been doing that and then some with the DIY stuff I play around with.
Yeah.
So even though I don't have enough solar to power my full-size EV on a sustainable basis, my e-bike is, my completely off-grid propulsion system if I need it. So
Yeah, that's a good point. You can have a small solar array to power an e-bike.
yeah, so you can go on the Craigslist these days and buy 400 watt panels. They're a couple years old for $100. That's ridiculous. And all the other components you can buy off eBay or wherever for 10 or 15 bucks for a charge controller, and a couple $100 for at most for a battery, depending on what you're getting, and inverter. Again,
You
30
see all the
$40.
solar panels at the swap thing,
They're all over the place. They show up at the building salvage places periodically and all over the place. So that stuff's gotten so cheap that if you've got any room at all for it, emergency backup power source, power your e-bike, all kinds of fun.
So, Mark Nordland, I don't see him here tonight, but he sent out this email, I think a few months ago, to the SIVA list. It's really thought-provoking and interesting. So, and it leads into our talk about the Chinese electric vehicles and such as well. But this is showing a graph of countries' EV share of new car sales. And the darker green on the left is what they were in 2019. And then the lighter green extent out to here is what they were in 2025. So this isn't current as of 2026, but it is as of last year. So number one is Norway at 97% of new car sales in Norway in 2025 were electric. How incredible is that? And then, interestingly, Nepal is leading next with 73%. And Denmark is up there, Sweden, Iceland, Finland, Netherlands, China, a whopping 53%. So over half of all the cars sold in China, which is the biggest automobile market in the world, are now electric or were electric in 2025. So that is really incredible. And then Belgium, you look down the list. Anyway, it's kind of interesting seeing where different countries are. And sadly, where's the U.S.? We're still going to be down further.
No way.
2 to 10.
Yeah. So
Not on the list.
we were at 2% in 2019. We're at 10% in 2025. So that is a big improvement, but comparatively to a lot of other countries, not so good. And here in the Pacific Northwest, and especially as SIVA members, it's like, well, I've been driving an EV for 20 years. And you see, it seems like every other car is a Tesla or a Rivian or a Hyundai or something, or a Volt. And that's not the case when you get in the Midwest of the country. And I happen to know also the statistics for 2025 and recently of cars sold in the U.S. And the Tesla Model Y was leading for electric vehicles, but it was number 4 overall for vehicles sold in our country. And guess what the top 3 vehicles were? Well, number 1 is the Ford F-150, and not the Lightning, sadly, which they discontinued, but the gas F-150. And it has been that for the last 40 years at the top. Number 2 was the Silverado, and not the electric one. And number 3 was the Ram pickup. And so the top 3 most popular vehicles sold in our country are big fossil fuel burning trucks. And we don't think about that unless you have one, but that is very common. If you go over into Montana or in the Midwest and stuff, I mean, it'll be rare. Years ago, when I was actually, Scott and I were out at the track in rural Montana by Billings in my Model S and got a flat tire, and nobody in that area, none of the tire shops even had a tire of that size because it's too unusual.
That'd be a really interesting chart as a state breakdown.
What's that?
That'd be a really interesting chart to do it as a state.
Oh, states in Washington? Yeah, that would be interesting. Many years ago, I mean, it's probably 2012-ish, when I was on a committee down in Olympia for electric vehicle advocating, I did learn some interesting things. A representative from Nissan was there, and they said as far as the Nissan Leaf went, their best-selling states for electric vehicles where it had actually eclipsed the sales of the Ultra, which used to be their, or I'm sorry, the Altima, which used to be their best-selling vehicle. In some states, the Leaf was the best-selling vehicle, or in some cities rather, not necessarily states, but it was Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, and Atlanta was one of them, which really surprised me. And now I forget what the fifth one was, but like the top five, yeah, we were in there, and maybe LA was another one, but yeah, Atlanta, Georgia as well. Anyway, that was kind of interesting, but yeah, it would be interesting to see a list of states. A few things that I find curious about this list here too is Japan. What's up with Japan? You are an island country who doesn't produce your own oil, and you have been some of the earliest to make electric vehicles with the Mitsubishi i-Leaf and the Leaf, and CHAdeMO stations all over your islands for years. What is going on? What's that?
They already have such an emphasis on small, compact, highly efficient vehicles. There's not going to be gas with it. That's what they've done.
Yeah.
I was reading about that somewhere. That's part of it. So.
I mean, I guess they do have the electric trains. They've had the bullet trains since the late 60s, so that's good. But I found that really surprising that they're way near the bottom.
They also have parking garages for bicycles every few blocks. So I think that's a lot of people.
Well, let's not forget Toyota too, which is.
That's true, and Honda, both are not doing real well with their EVs. In fact, Honda's Prologue is basically a Chevy that Honda has. So you're right, that is a good point too. Toyota not on the EV bandwagon really. But yeah, so I think it's a pretty interesting list. Also, in juxtaposition to that, at the other end of the spectrum, Norway, who is one of the biggest oil producers, is like, I think they're smart. They're like, we're not going to smoke our own stuff. Like, we're not going to burn our own oil. We're going to sell it and make money off of that, and we're buying EVs.
You know what they do with that money? They put it into a national trust fund because they know it's not going to last forever.
Yeah. And so that kind of leads us to, I don't know. Anyway, it's worth looking at. The website is Visual Capitalist. They have got a lot of interesting graphs for all sorts of things. It's always cool. But I just found this one to be
Vietnam isn't up there because they haven't released their numbers for 2025.
Yeah, share what you just said.
In 2023, their percentage of electric cars was 0, and in 24 it was 28%.
Wow.
So they're the fastest. They're one of the fastest developing economies in the world, and they're jumping into the electric car market like crazy. No, they're VinFast.
Really?
Are they made in Vietnam?
Yeah, VinFast is a Vietnamese company. You can buy one in California.
Cool. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Well,
if you're interested in Washington State, there's a really cool dashboard for Washington State that breaks down like county by registration of current vehicles, and you can see how many of each model are registered in each county. And it's pretty fun to just kind of play with. So.
Yeah. I would presume that the San Juan Islands have a good amount of EVs because they make sense up there. And then, of course, Eastern Washington, I don't see as many over there. But although they have very cheap electricity, our state is a great state to own an electric vehicle as well because our electricity rates are so low. Anyway, really good on China for having, they're way up at top, and by far, actually, where is India as well?
Towards the bottom.
India is towards the bottom. So yeah, what's up with that too? both of them are very populous countries. I wonder what's going on with their
India told Tesla they put
governments.
100% tariff on
Yeah.
their cars.
Mm.
Unless they were manufactured in India.
They have a bunch
So
of
that's gonna be for
import
everybody.
stipulations.
Well, leading into our next presentation on Chinese automobiles, I also want to start with an interesting point to ponder and thing to think about. So does anyone besides Ron know what this little token is? Probably not. It's a little plastic token. But you probably are familiar with this, right? So here's an Orca card. So let's say that I want to go to Toronto, for example. And so I'm going to fly out of SeaTac. And so I go down to Seattle, and let's say I haven't got an Orca card, I'm planning on going to do a lot of travel or something. So I put $200 on my Orca card. And then I hop on the light rail, go out to SeaTac, and I fly to Toronto. And that cost me $5 or something. So I got $195 on my Orca card. When I get into Toronto, do you think I could sell this Orca card for $195 to anybody in Toronto? Probably not. Like, who's going to want that? And so this other little token, this is a subway token from the Ukraine subway system in Kiev that I got a few years ago. Same kind of deal. Like, if I brought this here, what would anybody give me for this? Like, what would be the point? And yeah, only as a collector's item.
Maybe $10 for it.
We'll start bidding more. But anyway, something that I learned a number of years ago, and you may have heard me mention it before, but I think it bears repeating because I think it explains a lot of what is happening in our world with the geopolitics of different nations, is basically after World War II, you know, our country, the United States, we were isolated by big oceans, and we were the manufacturing hub then, just cranking out airplanes and all sorts of stuff. And we did not have to contend with getting bombed like all of Europe and much of Asia. And so here on the homeland, we did really well. And also Great Britain, who was the big power at the time, got bombed horribly and really beaten down. And then European countries, and so then they were in debt to us. But coming out victorious like that, we had the opportunity then to, the British pound had kind of been the world reserve currency before that. And now we're like, well, we're the big dog, and the US dollar is going to be the world reserve currency now. And at the time, you could still exchange your US dollars for gold. So it was something that was actually had value in that you could exchange it for gold. And so other countries would be like, well, why would I want this foreign currency? Because you could actually come to the US and exchange your dollar for gold. US citizens used to do that with dollars, but in the 1930s, they put the kibosh on that. But other countries could still do that. And so then a lot of countries also stored their gold here because they figured we have a big military, we're successful, a big safe country to store your gold and wealth in. And so that went along. And in 1971, Nixon took us off of the gold standard. But when he did that, I believe it was Kissinger, you know, other people in the department had made negotiations with all of the oil-producing countries in the world, and got them to agree, which still just blows me away, to only sell their oil in US dollars. So even countries that were our big enemy at the time, like Russia, because now it's full on in the Cold War in the 70s, and they're selling their oil in US dollars. And so the analogy to the Orca card or the Ukrainian subway token is the same for our US dollar. And it is an incredible privilege that we have enjoyed for now many decades as a result. And if you want to look more into it, you can Google the petrodollar, because that is kind of the name. It's like our currency is now just a fiat currency, so it is no longer backed by gold. No other country or anybody, you can't go and exchange your dollar for gold. It only has value because we agree that it has value. However, more than that, a number of commodities oil isn't the only one. Gold and some other metals are often also traded in dollars. But oil, like our country got the other oil producers to agree, you will only sell this in US dollars. And so what that means, I mean, doesn't, like, put yourself in the shoes of Saudi Arabia or somebody, or even Venezuela, like, too, and recently not a friend of our country, and yet they're having to sell all the oil they produce for US dollars. So they're getting all these US dollars. What are they going to do with it? I mean, luckily we've made a lot of things because we have a lot of businesses and stuff. And for a lot of the Middle Eastern companies, the deal kind of was, hey, Saudi Arabia, we'll sell you F-16s and stuff and all sorts of, because we make a bunch of military stuff, and they're getting all these dollars as well as our debt. And so all sorts of countries, and China included, over the years have bought government T-bills and stuff. Well, you buy that with US dollars. And so it creates a market, just like if I have the Orca card with $200 on it here, and you're stuck at the airport and don't have a way to get, or you lost your phone or something, you got to think, I mean, you might pay something for the Orca card. Or if you're in Ukraine and you need to take the subway, you need to get that token to take the subway. So it has value because of what it does there. In the world, the US dollar has value because it buys oil. So, and if you think about that too, if you're a country, you don't want to get taken over by another country, or your citizens want to feel protected, so you're going to have some type of a military, no matter how big or small of a country you are. Well, the majority of countries in the world do not produce their own oil, but as much of an EV guy as I am, are you going to have a fighter jet running on batteries? Not unless there's some big breakthrough, you know. And same with like tanks and stuff. I mean, maybe that's more realistic, but a lot of the military equipment and stuff you have to have oil for. And so that means no matter what country you are, you got to get oil at least at a minimum for your military, as well as for moving trucks and things around. Yes.
Have you been following I just saw another dissertation on the internet about Japan and how they've been involved with buying our debt and holding it and then reselling the bonds. It's almost as interesting as what you've been talking about for the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes. This oil thing that we created some years ago. And it may slip out of our hands in the next 10 or 20 years.
The reason I bring it up and tell a lot of people about it is because I didn't know about this for most of my life. And it happens that my brother got his undergraduate degree in economics. So as soon as I heard somebody mention the petrodollar to me, I was like, well, why would even other countries agree to that, especially Russia and other countries? They're like, what's in it for them? That doesn't make any sense. Is this even real? So I called my brother. I was like, have you heard about the petrodollar? I said, oh yeah, we learned about that in school. So like, really? How come this isn't common knowledge? Like, it seems like an amazing privilege to have. Why now there's a necessity that if no matter what country you are, that you have some dollars so that you can at least buy oil for your military and stuff. Like, it creates the need. And so then if you also look at our history in recent times, I think Clinton was the last to barely balance the budget during part of his term. And ever since then, it doesn't matter Republican or Democrat, it has gotten, our money printing is way out of control. But the reason that we're able to do that is because and without having crazy inflation in our own country, is because not all the dollars stay here. It's because the dollars get out all over the world because it's the reserve currency and because other countries need to have it to buy oil and things if they need more. And so it allows our politicians to be less responsible. I don't want to get off on too big of a rant, but like if you imagine, I think our country's national debt, like from income taxes that the government gets, is like 4 trillion something, and the expenditures that the government paid last year or something, I think is like more like 7 trillion or something like that. How many?
It's 9 this year.
9 trillion? Yeah, oh yeah, it's getting really bad again. Every year it gets worse. And anyway, can you just imagine, I mean, trillions is hard to think about, but like if you dumb it down, just imagine that you make $40,000, if we remove some zeros, say you make $40,000 a year, but you're spending $70,000 or $90,000 a year. How long are you going to be able to do that? Like who, at what time you max out a bunch of credit cards somewhere? If you're a business doing that, you can't stay in business very long. But
Somebody
Well, you don't take money.
But we can print money,
yes,
that's really the
when you
difference.
own the printers and you have the reserve currency, that's what happens. Anyway, more recently, there's an alliance of other countries called BRICS. It's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and it was South Africa. But now actually a whole bunch of other countries are joining in with BRICS as well.
Right.
And they're talking about using other currencies. And some of the other oil producers are working with China and talking about, hey, maybe we'll sell you oil in yuan instead of just US dollars and stuff. And so, yeah, take it. And so I don't think this is likely to last forever. And so it's important to know about and think about. And it's kind of, you know, just good food for thought. And then as the world goes and looks, I think also over the years, I know growing up in the US and stuff, we used to think about like, just cheap Chinese stuff, like I want a US made thing, the Chinese stuff is cheap or something. Maybe we have had this idea, but China has been advancing so dramatically over the last few decades that it is just staggering. And some of what we'll see with their EVs, this is another thing that was, you think of how different Trump and Biden, what their rhetoric is about electric vehicles or the environment, for example. But in Trump's first term, he put, I think, a 25% tariff on electric vehicles from China, and we didn't really get them. And Biden did not take away that tariff, as well as a bunch of other ones. And in fact, Biden added a whole bunch more on specifically Chinese electric vehicles and Chinese solar.
Daily, this is...
And and then of course now in Trump's second term, more tariffs on all that stuff and
to your eyes?
Down on the Chinese electric vehicles. So we have been barred from getting the Chinese vehicles here in our country. And Ford's CEO has recently visited China and also Honda's CEO as well, visited some of the Chinese factories, looked at their vehicles. Elon Musk has talked about it as well, and of course has factories in China. And all of them are really impressed. They say the cars are extremely impressive. Who here has seen the Chinese car that can jump potholes? I mean, how crazy is that too? They've got a car where the suspension is designed that it can hop up in the air, so it can potentially jump over obstacles in the road. So they've got some pretty impressive things. I'm really sorry, like I say, I'm not going to be able to show you the pictures from my brother's recent trip. I'll do that next month because it is really impressive. He went to Shenzhen, the city in the CEVA email list that I sent out, the picture that you could see, that was Shenzhen at night. They have a big light show. I mean, how amazing is that with all the buildings like that? And then his hotel he stayed at, Porsche had big DC fast chargers there. He said 90%, he estimated, of all the vehicles in the city that he saw were electric. And as Jay had reported recently too, all the scooters that used to be loud gas scooters now, most all of them are electric as well. So they are really electrifying like crazy. And then they also have high-speed trains. They've got electric drones. My brother ordered something, and they had this kiosk downtown, and a big drone came with his package, landed on top of the kiosk, and drops it into the little thing, and then he goes up and scans the phone or whatever and gets the package. That was pretty cool. He also took the maglev, a magnetically levitated train that, I remember back when I was really little, I barely remember, but Expo 86, the World's Fair in Canada, they had a maglev, and I thought it was so cool, it was so smooth. But where are our maglevs? And, China has these super fast maglevs now, and my brother was able to order also, like on the maglev, order some Kentucky Fried Chicken, and then it was delivered like they could tell, okay, the train's going here, and so they he did it through the app, and then it's figured out like what would be the nearest one, and then it got delivered onto the train to his seat, all through an app. It was Kentucky Fried Chicken.
That's where that math question came in from high school.
Yeah, right? Train links.
27 kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
So here's a question, given China's rapid adoption of electric transport, are they starting to see any improvements in air quality, especially in the cities?
From the photos, yeah. I guess another benefit of now my brother's really busy and on a different time zone right now, that I can get some more information on that. Because yeah, when I went to China in 2004, I visited Beijing and Inner Mongolia, and in Beijing you could literally look at the sun just with your eyes because the pollution was so bad that you could just look at the sun and it didn't hurt your eyes.
My only experience with the continent is early 2000s Hong Kong, and it was just like you were breathing like a giant cobweb all the time. So I don't know what it's like now.
They also incinerated all the garbage.
Yeah, well, whatever it was nasty.
But it stands to reason if over 50% of all the new cars sold were there, and like my brother said, it was obvious, his estimate was 90% of the vehicles, at least in Shenzhen, that he saw. It's probably different in smaller cities as well, but were electric. And he had pictures of, charging stations in these parking lots where every single parking stall had a charging station, like as far as you could see. It was really impressive.
I think more impressive than that is the two curves on adoption of solar power.
Yeah.
I've seen it, the ones like this is for China, and we're down here, we're growing, but not anywhere near as fast. It's almost like,
Last year, they installed more than we cumulatively have.
yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Yeah.
So good on them. And on that, and the other vehicles, like I say, I'll show you next month, but these vehicles that my brother saw too, they're luxury electric vehicles made by the Chinese companies, were impressive. Like a Rolls Royce with like super cushy leather seats, giant projection screens that roll down out of the ceiling for the back seat occupants, with projector then that shows an image on it and stuff. Crystal glasses in the cup holders and different things, like just really high end. The screens for the dash, very good. But yeah, I'll show you next month. And then John recently went to Brazil, where now that's another thing. So our government has been, for the past few terms, barring us from getting these Chinese vehicles because it would most likely disrupt our own auto industry so much. So we don't really get to experience them, but I think pretty soon Canada just slashed they used to have a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. They just slashed it. So they're gonna start coming into Canada. They're already selling quite well in Mexico.
They're gonna build a plant in Mexico. BYD's gonna have
So potentially, if you take a trip across either of our borders and rent a Turo or something, you can check out some of the Chinese cars for yourself. And then also in Brazil, they're selling quite well, and John went down there.
So there's a great YouTube channel, China Drive, I recently discovered or was recommended by someone who I trust. And also The Electric Viking has a channel, and he covers just everything, a lot of China stuff. So those are good ones to follow to keep up with what they're doing, which is amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
So in November of last year, my niece got married in Brazil, and I used the opportunity to visit a friend of mine, one of my closest friends who I communicate with every 10 years or so, but he's still a very close friend. And he took me out to eat, and right near the restaurant there was an electric car dealership, the company being Build Your Dream, which sounds like an American company, doesn't it?
Yeah, the BYD.
But BYD is a Chinese company. And the dealership, the people who worked there were all Brazilian, But they wouldn't give my friend the time of day because he teaches English, that's his job. And he probably has an income of the equivalent of $30,000 US, but in Brazilian money, which is 1/5 that. And these cars are in the equivalent, actually US dollars, about $30,000 to $60,000. And that's, again, 5 times what the Brazilian dollar is. And so I don't know who's buying all of these, but I did see a number of them on the road. But the average Brazilian definitely can't afford it. But having said that, I also asked, if I could drive it, and she said, absolutely. She said, he told her I was a doctor, which I am, and so that probably was the reason. But then I said, will my American insurance cover me if I have an accident? And she went to talk to her manager, and he said, no. I said, is there a way that I can pay for some insurance so that if I have an accident with my car, I don't end up in jail here? And she went to talk to her manager, and he said, no, you have to, prearrange that. And so anyway, so on short notice, I couldn't drive them without a lot of risk.
You could have.
With some risk. You could have. Yeah, but I was thinking, what's that athlete who was in Europe and in Italy, and she ended up in jail for murdering someone, and who knows if she, who knows, I don't know the story, but I was picturing something like that. So I didn't test drive them, but she let me, get in on all of them, and so I'm just going to flip through most of these. I try to get them from all angles, and I always take 2 shots. Stephen didn't tell me about this until last night, so I didn't edit them. So you have to bear with seeing all the images twice probably. But anyway, so this is called the Dolphin. It's a super cute little, sort of like the Honda Fit, but only more cute.
Looks like a Brazilian bull.
Yeah, right. It does. Except it's Chinese, yeah. But this is another model. I don't remember the names of them all, but this is another Dolphin. That's the interior. Sort of like the BMW, or a little nicer than the Bolts that I've seen. But this one was last year's model, so that was like $5,000 discount. But that's you'd be hard pressed not to want this over the Tesla if you saw the interior.
Is the truck next to it electric or no?
No. The seal, it's very aerodynamic.
I saw the same thing in New Zealand when I visited last year, and those people can't afford them.
What is the quality of these cars?
From all appearances, it looked really good, but I don't know what their track record is. I'm guessing that in the automotive industry, it's usually thought that the Chinese cut corners, and so companies buying parts from China, they have to take that into account, that the quality probably of the vehicles will be a little bit lower if they use Chinese parts. I'm sure that that varies and it might be changing, but from the people that I've talked to who are actually worked in the U.S. auto industry,
it's the same quality as your iPhone.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, we basically have outsourced so much of our manufacturing to China for so many decades now that they're very good at making things, because that's what they do. And even if we are not able to buy their electric vehicles, I think for a lot of our vehicles, Tesla is an exception. Tesla is one of the most American-made electric, or actually one of the most American-made cars, maybe the most American-made car of any car. But a lot of other cars, both gas and electric, have parts made in China. It's actually pretty difficult to make a complicated product these days. and not have some of the parts come from China.
You know, it's a case of they're absolutely able to make extremely high quality stuff. They will also sell you something very cheap if that's what you want.
Whatever you want, what you're willing to pay for. So is that
That's per liter, and that's ethanol. A lot of their cars run on pure ethanol. It's hell on the engine, so they don't last as long, but it's considerably cheaper, $4 as opposed to $6.
Well, since you can now buy a BYD in Canada, I'm wondering how hard is it to visit here for someone who lives in Canada and bought one? And has anyone thought about inviting friends from, say, Vancouver, BC, to come to car shows with their BYD?
To see the meeting, that'd be super cool. Yeah, great idea. If anybody has a friend in Canada, let's see about that. That would be super cool.
We know people at the car club up
True,
there.
we could check with Diva.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because it's so close, it'd be within range, yeah.
So I had asked Stephen if I could use the opportunity, the bully pulpit here, to ask anyone if they have any ideas for me. I have a couple of RVs that would lend themselves very well to electrification. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of an automotive engineer named William or Bill Collins. He is considered the father of the American muscle car, and he, believe it or not, what a passion for him was fuel economy. So when he retired, he wanted to buy an RV to travel around the country with his wife, and let's see if I can find the picture. He couldn't find one that he liked because he had actually also designed the Back to the Future DeLorean. Yeah, he was the engineer for that. They later hired, I think it was Giugiaro, Italian company, to do the final design. But he basically designed the DeLorean, and he didn't want to have what they call stick and plywood, I think, motorhome. I'm having a little trouble with this one. So he designed his own. It was called the Vixen, and I wanted to show you a few pictures.
So DeLorean was the guy who, in '64, came up with the muscle car with the GTO.
He created the Tempest. Has anyone ever heard of the Tempest?
No, the Tempest became the GTO in '64.
Yeah, the Tempest actually in races was beating the Corvettes by a full lap.
Yeah.
And so it's a really interesting history. I talked with him a number of times on the phone. I was the president of the Vixen Owners Association for 3 years, and I just have a few photos
Those are diesel pushers
to show. Maybe in the future I'll be able to do a better presentation because I really didn't have time to prepare, but let me just flip through a few things. That's the bed on the interior. So they were made from 1986 to 1989. I have a first year model and the last year model. This is the last year model. They had a fixed roof. This is a first year model. They have a pop top. And these are the most aerodynamic RVs ever built. He designed it in the wind tunnel, which was the first time anyone had ever put an RV into a wind tunnel. This one raced and got the world speed record for an RV. But this one here, it's in Europe.
Is that rear wheel drive or front wheel drive?
It's rear wheel drive.
Rear wheel drive, okay.
And I have, as I said, I have the first year and the last year models, and I wouldn't mind. This is the one that somebody had abandoned in the parking lot. But the first year they used the BMW engine. Bill Collins had a friend who worked for Isuzu, and Isuzu had promised their diesel engine for it, and they couldn't deliver, and he couldn't wait the extra year. he would have to wait another year on production. They didn't have the cash to wait another year. So they got a bunch of these turbo diesels from South America. It wasn't German BMW engines. They were made in South America. So it was sort of underpowered. That's the advertising, the marketing postcard. There's an older one, but that's the turbo diesel. I'm just going to speed up. I don't want to spend too much more time, but that's the interior. So
could it be a skateboard?
Yeah, my
Battery?
recommendation.
Could it have a skateboard battery?
Depending, so it's probably rear engine.
Yeah.
So one idea would be Tesla drive unit from a Model S, flop it in the rear. The good news with converting something like that is probably a lot of room for batteries. Get a big battery from a Lightning or Silverado EV perhaps or something like that. I guess if it's a Tesla drive unit, figure a Lightning one, so the voltage should be right. Otherwise though, truly I think the cheapest or easiest way probably to convert it would be buying an existing electric van like the Ford Transit EV, which you can even buy as a cab and chassis type of thing. And take, or the right off, they stopped making them though. But yeah, something like that, or maybe the Rivian ones are going on sale soon, but buy an existing one, or actually a Ford Lightning would be good potentially too, because it's one of the few electric vehicles that is body on frame, or a Rivian too, the Rivian truck. The cost for that, especially if you get a used one.
Does Amazon ever sell off the full delivery thing?
I bet they will. That's an interesting thing for the future, but I haven't heard of it recently. But, yeah.
So my wife,
I bet they will.
because in September on my birthday, I'm going to be retiring, and she said for my retirement I can spend whatever it takes to do this stuff.
Is there anybody old enough here to remember the GMC motorhome powered by
With the Tornado?
front wheel drive?
Yeah, I know those. Those were also pretty aerodynamic.
This
looking.
close to buying one because we were a dealer, but we could never get my dad to.
They're all fiberglass too.
So this is Bill Collins and his wife Nina. He died recently, but she's still alive. And I did want to show one more picture, if you don't mind, if I can get to it. I don't know how to just get out of this without having to go back through the whole series of steps. But anyway, I want to show you mine because it's funny you mention it. My first year model with the flip top, the original owner removed the engine and put in a Tornado drivetrain. So I got a big black 455 in mine, and it just flies like crazy, but it gets about 12 miles per gallon.
Yeah.
So I hate to be. Mine is the only one that has that drivetrain, and Bill Collins said in retrospect, he thinks that's probably the engine that would have made that car, that vehicle practical, even though that gas mileage. So I'm just going to show you that fast. This is who I bought.
Oh, because the diesel was, the diesel Isuzu was underperforming?
Yeah. The Suzu one would have been fine, but the BMW one underperformed. This is mine.
Cool.
And you got me in the picture here.
It's got pretty aerodynamic looking wheels and that fender skirt, and it looks like ducts to cool the rear engine there.
So how many of them are there?
So the total for all 4 years, 555 or so, and only about a quarter of them are still running. Probably about 2/3 are still around, not running, and nobody has ever died in a Vixen.
So imagine all below the floor is all the gray water tanks, black water tanks, and water tanks. I mean, in other words, can you put a battery below the floor?
Yeah, there's a lot of room for batteries
underneath.
And the man who owns the original huge fiberglass molds is in Ohio, and he was advertising in Hastings, I think, one of these motor vehicle journals.
Yeah.
For $1 million, he'll sell you everything, including several bodies that he pulled off the molds. And so no one's going to pay that. But anyway, thank you for your attention. And do you need the computer for anything else?
Well, looking at our time, we're almost at 8:30. So I have a presentation on my Nissan Leaf battery pack upgrade if people are interested. Or
is it on this list?
We can. No, I have it on my flash drive here.
Do you want me to put it in?
Sure, I guess you can put it in. Otherwise, too, I didn't mention at the beginning of the meeting, so I'll kind of do things in reverse order here. We usually like to start it off with introducing yourself. If you are new to SEVA or haven't been here in a long time, please introduce yourself. And so I don't see any new faces over here.
I'm Terry. My wife Lisa's here. This is date night, so thank you all for the invitation.
Oh, okay.
We're sorry, Lisa. It's about my fourth meeting. I was in September when you showed me about your tour. I was amazing around the country. And Jay was very helpful in that meeting. I was asking about dual charger for PS4 2016 EV.
Okay.
And now I've gotten a PS Sportage plug-in hybrid. So we were looking for a dual charger at that time and checked out what you guys helped me with, and they're just too expensive. So we're back to the idea of a single dumb charger plug-in, not a hardwired. Does anybody have?
When you say dual charger,
I was asking at that time in September for dual. Now we decided we don't want to go single. We can charge our cars one at a time.
So EVSE in the garage to have either two or
Yes,
one.
we'll take turns charging. I just see like my plug-in hybrid is like a trickle charger.
Yeah, so
I don't want to take 26 hours to charge my car.
I never pretty much, I have 4 electrics, pretty much it's, it's here, it's really easy to do.
So which plug-in hybrid do you have?
PS4.
What's the electric range?
The electric range is 32 miles.
Okay, so my wife had a Pacifica hybrid, which is about the same,
Yeah.
16 kilowatt hours. And you can probably get away with just a level 1 onto a regular outlet.
Well, we do it all the time.
For that vehicle, and then save the.
We're looking for, that's what we will do. We're looking for a level 2.
Yeah, save that one.
Single.
Yeah,
plug-in
save that one.
wall. Does anybody have any recommendations?
We're commercially using $180 level 2s off of Amazon every day, so it's become a disposable commodity purchase.
Is it really? And their reliability doesn't matter, or I've seen those online.
Yeah.
The manufacturer.
They're white labeled, so they're under any number of brands.
Oh, okay.
But CE certified.
Okay. Easy then.
If it's CE certified, it should be good.
Thank you.
The charger itself doesn't actually charge anything. It's just allowing the AC current to go through to the charger. So the brand is not.
What you're buying is a smart extension cord.
Yeah, right. We don't need the app. We need dumb charge.
Anybody else new here tonight? No, great. Oh, yes, go ahead.
My name is Corby, K-O-R-B-Y. That's the first time I have a 2023 Chevy Bolt.
Cool.
All right.
Has it been really reliable for you?
That thing was advertised as 256 on the charger. When I first got it, it was 220. I was like, right on. I'm beating somebody. And then there was a software recall. And then it went back to 256. Well, I can't complain. And then it's 4 years old, and now it's like in the summer, I can barely get it on 210. In the summer, 80. And like White House, really 180. I'm part of a class action lawsuit. I'm getting $5,500. That's about it.
Huh. Yeah, that is interesting. Well, my presentation will be on this Leaf here. One of them is the one that's sitting out there now, and the other one is Ryan's. Yep. So Ryan and Ron are in these 2 Leafs here. Both. Yours was what year, Ryan?
So I had a lease of a 2013 and I purchased in 2012.
Okay, so yours was a 2012 and Ron's was a 2013. Both of them were silver. This was at our Silent Thunder event that we held at Pacific Raceways many years ago. And boy, we discovered since the Leaf has the parking brake on the rear wheels and it's front wheel drive, you could get quite the smoky burnout because they're getting a lot of torque.
Does anybody have a video of that?
Now, yeah, I think somewhere there's a video. How come the arrows aren't working here either? What did we have to do to get races to work?
Have I opened all of them? Does this open well?
Yeah, I haven't used my laptop in a while, so I usually not doing it right. I have them in order for the presentation.
It's 156, is that right?
Probably.
It shouldn't take too long. I didn't know why her stick said that.
Oh.
No, she should be able to
That's
scroll
long time
through
ago.
in order.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So,
Perfect. Yes.
so just go something down until you do.
I'll accept it still. All right. So yeah, back when I started on EVs, you had to convert an electric vehicle if you wanted one, basically. Come on. So here I am with our most prolific. I think Scott and I have converted a lot of electric vehicles now, and Jay, but still Dave Cloud has us beat. So when I was in college, me and my friends went to see
God
Dave
bless
Cloud.
you, Dave.
Yeah, rest in peace, Dave. He was our most prolific converter. The other way you could get an electric vehicle back then was to buy some of the CARB era ones out of California. So my father wound up doing that, and then I wound up getting an electric S10 as well. I remember at the time when gas went over $3 a gallon, we thought that was horrible, and so here I was, and I'd take it around to car shows with a little protest banner that I made because it says GM built me back in 1997. Why am I one of less than 60 left, which wasn't crust, no exhaust, low maintenance, less than $100 to fill, pure electrics do work. Here's another group picture of some of the early SEVA folks with the options of electric vehicles that you could get at the time. So there's my converted Pontiac Fiero, Jeff Finn's Volt Runner, which is a Dave Cloud Geo Metro conversion, and then some the CARB era EV, the Toyota RAV4 EV from the Saxtons, Steve Lowe's new Mitsubishi i-MiEV, and the Tesla Roadster, which came out in 2008.
There's a leaf in the
So
garage.
nostalgia-
Yeah, and that's right, Jeff
So
and his
for
wife's
nostalgia,
Leaf
that-
is
that
in the
was that
garage.
same-
So this was that's a more recent picture, but I thought that's a good one that shows a little history of those early
But that was at
EVs
a writer's
going on.
house, you remember the occasion?
Yes, it was when Kitty Rodden came up and we were meeting there to discuss unveiling the West Coast Electric Vehicle Highway and SEVA's sponsorship of that.
I see,
We met at
okay.
Jeff and Mary Lynn's house. Anyway, so I wound up, let's see, so the different vehicles that came out, somehow that's partly out of order. After you had the CARB era EVs, sort of the next big one that was available in mass-ish production was the Tesla Roadster coming out in 2008, but it was out of the price range for most people. But we took them up to Wild Horse Wind Farms with the Tesla group, and that was the first time I'd ever gone over 200 miles on a charge in an electric vehicle, and I was really impressed with that.
I remember that picture, showing it at a meeting a long time ago.
Yeah.
When I was working on this, at the time I was finishing up my truck.
And then in Japan, Mitsubishi came out with the i-MiEV, I think slightly before the Leaf. I'm not
Yes.
sure.
We sold 24,000 of them before the Leaf era.
Ooh, wow. So Mitsubishi kind of, I would say, first with the second wave of modern electric vehicles in Japan, and then Nissan also introducing the Leaf in Japan first. Then both of them came to the US. And actually here's Steve. So my first experience with a Leaf was SEVA got invited to Quest Field or one of the stadiums there.
Yeah,
and
I did that.
they had this Leaf prototype there, but we couldn't even drive it. They had electrified Nissan Versas that were the ones giving the test rides. Kent was there too, I remember. And then I was going to show this, but it's online. Maybe some of you remember then there was another event that Nissan did at South Center in
I
Tukwila,
went to that one.
where now they had actual Leafs that you could drive,
Yeah.
and you could win a Nissan Leaf. And so I used my old Beaker Halloween costume, and Ron did his famous walk, and Chad, my friend, we tried to win a Nissan Leaf. It didn't turn out successful, but more will come on that later. And I did win for the Seattle area, and I got a bicycle from Nissan for having the most video views. But another early EV that you could buy, and this one was actually built in China, is the Koda. And then you could get it, and we have some EV pioneers here. Kevin and Grace had this
Well,
Koda.
components came from China, assembled in California.
True, yeah. So I guess it was built and converted in California, used a UQM drivetrain and stuff. But the body, the Koda body, was a Chinese car body back then. And boy, have the Chinese cars come a long way since this.
So that was
short
quite
time.
the car at the time, though.
Yeah, it was a lithium car for its time.
The mine was a 1990s Mazda that was reproduced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in my own family,
Got out of business, we might still be driving it. We had 110, 140,000 miles on that.
So that's solid. So in my own family, then yeah, my dad had the electric S10 that he was commuting with, and then he needed a new vehicle and wanted something with more range, so he had put in an order for a Tesla Model S super early, but it took like 5 years, it didn't come, and so in the meantime, my mom needed a new car, and so we ordered a Nissan Leaf, and had one of the first Leafs on order. Unfortunately, my mom passed away from cancer before it was delivered. And then the ironic thing is my friend Chad, who helped us on that video trying to win a Nissan Leaf, he wound up finding one at a dealership before my dad's early one even was thing, and got it. So he picked up this Leaf, and the first thing he's like, let's go see how far this will really go. And he knew I was a really efficient driver. He's like, Steven, you drive it. And so we pulled out all the stops. I, in fact, didn't stop at all stop signs, took back roads, and this photograph here was taken at Mowich Lake. Yep, 5,000 feet above sea level, up a dirt road, up, you know, a third of the way up Mount Rainier. There's me and Chad with that Leaf. And when we got to the top there, to the parking lot, which there's no electricity at all, on the dirt road, it was blinking low battery warning. We had 7 or 8 miles of range left, and we had gone over 50 miles. But I knew, hey, we're at 5,000 feet, we're gonna get regenerative braking and stuff. So coming back to my place, both Chad and I lived in Maple Valley, we made it back home without having to stop to charge at all. 102.5 miles on a charge.
Here.
So using super efficient driving. Then this is actually Jeff Finn's first Leaf, and I got to be the first person, thanks to our friend Tonya Buell at the WashDOT DOT, the first public non-DOT employee to plug in a car to their fast charger. So the Chatham network was being built out. And then my dad's Tesla did come, and he didn't have as much need for the Leaf, and the S10s were having lots of reliability issues and stuff. And my Fiero didn't go nearly as far on a charge as the Leaf. And so I started driving the Leaf more, and I took it on many adventures. This is up at Chinook Pass. This is down in front of Mount Shasta. That was the most epic adventure, and not all the Chatham stations have been put in yet, but Ron and I took it on a crazy adventure. This is at the highest point at Siskiyou Pass on I-5, at the early AeroVironment stations. Here's Ron and I sleeping at an RV park in the Leaf, in the front seats, with like sleeping bags and winter coats, because it took us, what was it, like 13 hours to get from here to the California border, and then something like 14 hours to get just to San Francisco because of the lack of DC fast chargers. So San Francisco really, or California DOT really dropped the ball.
You look like the Gemini astronauts.
Yeah, I remember we were trying so hard not to use, between Wairika and stuff, we got off the freeway and took little side roads, and we didn't use the heater, and the windshield was starting to ice over. But here we are then at an RV park charging. We had to make a few RV park stops, And also, we packed the Leaf full of stuff. The Leaf is really big inside. I'm 6'4", and I can fit in front or back and even sit behind myself. It's actually quite big inside. And we had a full-size spare tire that we brought. I've also hauled a folding bike in the Leaf. This was an early range extender. The Montague folding bike. I experimented with fender skirts on it and trying to do things to increase the efficiency of the Leaf. And then another great thing about the Leaf is that I always liked was it shows you how much each system is using, and so you could also really granularly figure out, oh, if I do this, like when I turn on the headlights, does that make a big issue? If I turn on the radio, does that make a big issue? Not really, but you could see like when you turn on the heater, boy, that's bad. Air conditioning, not quite so much. And then also this great app, Leaf Spy, came out, which leads into what will come later. Oh, this photo here is not a lithium pack upgrade, but my super efficient driving on that California trip, this was outside of Chico, because I forget how many miles it was, but it was a very long distance to the next CHAdeMO station that was out of our way from San Francisco and Chico, but the dealer there had a CHAdeMO. And so I drove so efficiently that this is what the car thought I would get on the charge.
What were your best watt hours per mile?
I forget what the watt hours per mile were for that. Yeah, it's too bad I didn't have a picture for that. And now it's been so many years, I don't remember. I remember it was easy to get over 4 miles per kilowatt hour. The Leaf didn't tell you watt hours per mile.
This is what, 2014 now we're talking about?
Yeah, this is around 2014, I think.
But around a year later, we got 4 miles per gallon, bringing the Veggie truck back from Chico.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
But so here I am. The other tricks I always tell people is I think your best bet is finding railroad tracks. Like if you're in trouble or you want to drive as efficiently as possible, look on the map for railroad tracks. You know if a road parallels railroad tracks, there's not going to be any unexpected sudden elevation changes. So sure enough, I followed these farmland railroad tracks. And also drafting off of trucks, being the geeks that we are, Ron and I were taking turns driving and taking notes on what our efficiency is. So actually, yeah, somewhere there's probably notes that would say what our efficiencies were. Anyway, there was one section in Oregon where Ron was asleep and I was driving, and I drafted dangerously close to the semi for that whole trip, and we might have even been able to skip a charge station. Anyway, it made an extreme difference. And so when Ron woke up at the next charge station, it was like, writing information, he thought something might be wrong. He's like, are you sure? And he was like, what happened? And I was like, I was drafting off of a truck. So
did that with my Volkswagen. It works.
It really does work. I can't say from a safety standpoint I recommend it, but it really does work.
Does it hurt the truck's gas mileage?
No, it actually helps. Just like bicycles drafting in a race, it helps both of you. So I have had trucks get angry with me before. I've done it in Teslas on long road trips as well. I have sometimes had trucks start wagging around and even pull off because they just don't like. I think now they have backup cameras and they don't like seeing somebody that close sometimes.
Well, that's why they've talked about like the Tesla semis doing like a train.
Yes.
They will follow one another up and down
yeah.
I-5 corridor.
With AI and the self-driving vehicles coming, I think the opportunity for having extreme close little AI self-driving trains is available. Or another idea I'd always toyed with is what if you had a big electromagnet on a little boom that you could deploy?
I think that's cheap.
I think that would be, but yeah. So anyway. Why did the Leaf need a new battery? Well, we put it through a lot of heck and raced it. So Ron wound up buying a Leaf. I had the 2011, and I bought the RAV4 EV 2013 for myself. It had so many problems and was being shipped to California to be worked on all the time. But since it was under warranty, they paid me a rental fee, and I wound up when it was gone for something like 6 months. I wound up. They let me rent it from my dad, so I basically bought the Leaf because it was thousands of dollars. And so I bought the Leaf from my dad off of the rental fees that I got from my Toyota being in the shop so often. Anyway, that was a 2011 Leaf, so it only had a 3.3 kilowatt charger, which is pretty brutal. So Ron got a 2013 Leaf, which was his first EV, which he drove a lot, and so then it was pretty awesome, and we took it down to race. He got racing slicks for it and stuff, and we raced that at the Refuel event down in Laguna Seca. And here we came in for that production class 5th place, and so even beat some Teslas and stuff, not because the car was more capable, but because the driver and the tires were better. And also the Leaf never overheated. The Tesla Roadsters overheated after just one lap, maybe even less, and even the Model S's would go into thermal cutback after a few laps. But that little Leaf, it's one of the most reliable cars I've ever owned, both the 2011 and then I wound up buying Ron's 13, which is why I'm showing it here. Yeah, we hauled it down with the Model S as well. Yeah, actually that was Ken's wrecked Model S that I bought, and we put the tow hitch on that and towed the Leaf down there electrically. And then, so in more recent times, since it was early 2013, it didn't have the better battery chemistry yet. And so the battery had degraded from Ron using it to its max for all his commuting and putting over 100,000 miles on it. And probably also from racing it and being hard on it. So I wound up buying it from Ron then when he got a Model 3. And it had 5 or 6 battery bars. And then I was racing it. So that its range got pretty pathetic, where it was only a grocery getter and not much else. But one of the other great things about the Nissan Leaf, I would say it's one of the most DIY-friendly electric vehicles out there. It doesn't have, the first generation ones in particular, don't have all the fancy self-driving stuff. Door handles are not electric presenting or anything, they're just regular old door handles. And Leaf Spy allows you to do so much. So just a few months ago, I found a Leaf on Craigslist for $1,200 with an 11-bar battery and 60-something thousand miles of 2015. So I used Leaf Spy to go out and look at it, and the state of health of the battery was over 80%, and it was really good. But the Leaf had actually some body damage and some other problems, so that's why it was being sold for so cheap. I picked it up in my Lightning, which I towed. It was out in Port Townsend, so I went 214 and a half miles out there and back to get it, and towing it on the trailer, and didn't have to ever stop to charge. So also shows how far we've come on the vehicles. So then, yeah, here was the new Leaf with 62,000 miles and 11 battery health bars. Also, for those thinking like, well, I don't have a 2-post lift or a fancy shop to be able to do a battery pack swap, I would say don't let that be a stop to you. Too bad Corey isn't here tonight, but Ron and Corey Sy and myself got this battery pack out of a wrecked Tesla in Canada on a barely paved, dirty driveway using floor jacks and wood cribbing. And this is a different picture. I've done a number of Tesla battery removals and swaps and stuff without a 2-post lift. The 2-post lift without anything on the bottom is definitely the way to go. But if you don't have it, and especially for a little battery pack like the Leaf, it's something you can definitely do at home with a few floor jacks, some cribbing, and such. So basically, you just start lifting the car higher and higher and adding more wood in with the floor jacks until it is up high enough that you can drop the battery pack out from underneath. And so having multiple floor jacks is helpful. You can also fix a Tesla drive unit this way. You drop the whole cradle out. Anyway, here's now the battery pack is out. Here you can see the floor jacks to get them high enough, having a big like railroad tie in there to add extra wood or extra height to the floor jack. Yeah, good thing OSHA isn't here. But I mean, I use super thick solid wood because like unless there's an earthquake and you try shaking the car, it's not going anywhere. It's sitting on solid wood. And then make a simple cart with some Harbor Freight casters and plywood to lower the pack onto, and then you use the floor jacks to lower the pack down. So here it is with the Leaf. Also a cool thing I would recommend if you are looking into a Nissan Leaf, get a 2013 or newer. 2013 really I think is the best year because was the last year that they still offered you to limit the pack to 80% full charge by a button on the screen. Then they took that away after that and never added it since. But so any of the 2013 up until even the 2025 Leaf, all the battery packs are physically interchangeable. So that's pretty cool. In the case of my swap, since I got a 2015, it also had a 24 kilowatt hour pack. So unfortunately, I wasn't going to get more range than the car could have had in the beginning, but I also didn't need to do any CAN bus spooling at all. It literally is plug and play, and then with LeafSpy, you just program it. So yeah, here again, you can see, in this case, we just lifted the pack up in there on the battery card and down. So the floor jack's under the little battery platform, and just you can do it in the garage. So Charlie helped me with this, and Ron actually. And there, one battery slipped out, and then the other one slipped in under the side. The hardest thing was fitting and jockeying the two batteries around with the different cards. Is not too particularly big, and so then we swapped the other one in. Oh yeah, also putting chocks on if you on your thing so it can't roll off of the wooden blocks, also smart. And then you'll need an ELM 327 device. There are plenty of cheap ones on Amazon, but the best brand that is highly recommended for things is OBD-Link, and they have different versions for Android or iOS. But basically, you plug this into the OBD2 port on the car, and then you can use the LeafSpy app to connect to that via Bluetooth. When you first put the battery in, it says motor power is limited, and it has the little turtle sign and error because it doesn't recognize the new battery pack. It actually does let you drive, but just at limited power. So it can see like, hey, I can work here, but it isn't recognizing everything. And
it's
so
the VIN number in the module inside the lithium pack.
Being different.
Yeah. That was a Nissan setting. But because they didn't want you to do that.
Yeah, it is a very lucky thing that LeafSpy allows you to do this, because otherwise you would have to take it to the dealer. But so yeah, then you're able to clear that using LeafSpy. So this little LeafSpy app shows you tons of helpful information about the car, but also allows you to clear that error and pair the new pack with it. So it was pretty simple, and now, oh wait, no, that's the wrong picture. Anyway, now Ron's old Leaf, now mine, has almost 111,000 miles on it, but it's got the new pack. And since I can limit it to 80%, we'll see how long it lasts.
What's the kilowatt hours of the pack?
Only 24 kilowatt hours. So I've been driving the Leaf more. I forgot, especially how, oh yeah, here we are now with the swap. So I've been driving the Leaf a lot more now. I forgot how nice it is compared to the Lightning, especially for parking and stuff. It's such a nimble little car, and it's very efficient. And so I just have forgotten how nice it is. Also, the internal resistance on the old pack was so bad, you didn't feel much regen, but now I got that back because the new pack is better.
And the charger in that car is a 6 kilowatt?
It's a 6.6, yep, so I can charge quickly. So, yep, it's a lot better than the 2011 one. So, I would just recommend I've always told people electric vehicles are kind of like computers, in that if you have an old computer, you can upgrade new RAM and make that last a lot longer. Electric vehicles, you can upgrade parts too, and especially the battery, and breathe life into something, and the Leaf is a pretty easy one. I also, recently while I was charging at the charger at Eastgate, Bellevue Nissan, which a lot of the dealers too have the free CHAdeMO chargers. And they, yes.
What was your fast charging speed?
The screen was broken, so I didn't see, but it was quick because yeah, I didn't have it plugged in at that time. I don't know where I was going when I stopped there. Anyway, it charged quickly and was nice. What else was I going to say about it? The CHAdeMO one.
How fast it charged?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I went in and asked them, yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, on Leaf Spy, it even tells you how many times the car has been quick charged.
Yes, oh,
Level
yeah,
quick
that was
charge.
the thing, yeah,
So if you're buying a used one, you can see that.
and when I bought it, now it's showing 12. When I bought it, it had only been fast charged 11 times in its entire life. So yeah, it also was just a very well treated pack. And the previous owner, even though it was a 2015, used the charging timer to essentially try and limit it to 80% so that he was never charging it to 100%. So that's, it's had a really good life.
The Leaf is super cool because I made basically a OBD2 dongle that you can plug into a pack at a wrecking yard, plug it in, connect it to 12 volts, connect Leaf Spy, and you can see the state of health, state of charge, and everything without it even being in the car. And it's like 15 minutes to make it.
Nice.
And so if you wanted to upgrade to a newer pack, I just picked up a couple of 24 kilowatt packs.
Oh.
And just plug in. One of them was 78, one of them was 81% state of health. Good to go. So, and then with a little tomfoolery with the can, you can upgrade to a 40 or 62 pack kilowatt pack.
Yes, that would be nice because it is interesting, especially going from the Lightning or Teslas or stuff back to the Leafs. Like, oh yeah, I do have to care about efficiency and think about my range more again.
A little bit.
But
current as opposed to alternating current.
I asked at the dealership then, what's the cost for a replacement pack these days? And they told me the prices come down. The parts counter guy was actually checking, I needed windshield wiper parts and some other stuff. And the aftermarket ones, a lot of them don't have the right offset, so they don't sit quite as right. So I was like, oh, I want the Nissan one. Fortunately, they're on back order. But anyway, I was like, well, I met here, hey, what's the cost of a new pack these days? And he said, it's actually come way down in price. It's about $5,000. And I was like, what? Yeah, that is way down. So when the Leaf came out originally, I recall it being about $5,000 for a battery. What?
Well, I think the original quote was 12,000.
Well, early on it was like $5,000, I remember. But then, yes, it went up to 10 and 12,000 and has been really expensive recently. They said that Nissan just dropped the price.
It was
again.
12, and then it was 5, and then it was 12 again during the period of
maybe.
class action. So, premature degradation.
Well, so then be that as it may, maybe it's a good time if you have an old Leaf to buy one now that it's down low again. However, the parts guy said, well, I'd have to have your actual VIN and stuff to quote for sure, so go ask the service guy. So I went and asked the service guy, and he also said, well, I need your whole VIN and actually have to send the thing to Nissan. So it does get a little bit more complicated. And what he told me, which is dumb, is they will not just sell you the pack no matter what. Your battery has to be degraded enough, and then they send it to corporate and show the report that it is degraded enough that they'll buy it. It's like, what? So they don't just want to take your money. And so, because he said,
wrong.
Yeah, he said he's annoyed about it because he has a customer who Nissan deemed that the pack, well, it's not that degraded yet. And the customer's like, but I want to have you do it. And the dealership is like, we want to change the pack. What the heck? So they're in a little bit of a quandary.
So which size pack is that for?
24.
Oh, that's the other nice thing is I think that it depends on what the pack had originally, but they pretty much only make 30 and 40 kilowatt hour replacement packs for the early Leafs now. If you buy it from Nissan, it will have a bigger pack than what it did before, which is nice. So
I have an SV Plus of 2020 that's about 230 miles.
That's got the big, probably the 62 kilowatt.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you can get that replaced eventually.
Probably, yeah. You could check with them.
Will be $5,000.
Yeah.
Do you still have one little pack?
Yes. Yes. It's funny that you mentioned that. I was thinking about this. So I put Ron's old pack into the janky Leaf, which I was thinking, well, I could probably even sell it for $1,500 again, and then I got a free pack basically minus the labor. But I'll see what I do it. But then, yeah, after learning that, I was thinking, well, it actually could be useful as a way to get other packs to have this other little worthless Leaf with the bad pack if I ever wanted an actual brand new pack. Yeah.
I enjoyed the look back.
Yeah.
But one thing came to mind. Has anyone heard from our friend that had the his name just escaped me. I've got to go look into that. What is it? Honey and blueberries and some other special stuff.
Dave Barden? No? Dave Barden?
No.
Dave goes green.
Oh, Deb Seymour.
Car. Identifying by the car.
No, the old fella, he's got a Tesla now. But in the picture, he had a Leaf in the garage.
Oh, Jeff Finn.
Jeff Finn, yeah. Has anyone heard from Jeff
I
Finn?
have not, no.
I keep in touch with him. I keep in touch with Jeff.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. They still have his Aria?
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll wrap up the meeting here, but in a little other news too, the retro license plates. Grace sent out the information on that. Did anybody here sign up? There's now an EV plate for Washington State, and it looks like the old white with green lettering Washington license plates of yesteryear, but it's
Filled
for
out my
EVs.
form, I'm ready to write the check.
Okay, so has anyone here learned if they won one of the early numbers?
I got the message last week, last Wednesday, I think, that you did not win the drawing for the first 25 numbers.
That must mean a lot of people.
But I wondered if anybody entered one. But I did send my application in to get mine, and the place will say Evergreen.
I'm just gonna say 160 volts, which is what my battery pack is.
And Kevin said
I just found there's a check mark to get new tabs at the same time. I might do that. That looks like a good idea. But it's, it's one of those PDFs you
so
can
two
fill
of
out.
us, then, or 3 of us.
Well, my plate was gonna say meat, but now it says eki, patang.
All in 7 characters.
And then we'll send it out in our power outlet, but also we send it out to the SEVA email list, which if you're not on the email list, do go to seattleeva.org. You can join our email list or look up the SEVA mail list on Google Groups. But our friend Yu Chen from the University of Washington, who presented a few months ago at our SEVA meeting, their Eastern Washington wildfire evacuation study has come out, and you can win some money for taking, or you can put in a drawing to potentially win some money for taking that. But she wants people who either have a property or an EV in Eastern Washington. So if anybody does or knows somebody who does over there, please send the survey their way.
I took the survey, actually I've taken it twice because she used me to redesign it. She was kind of asking the wrong questions. Her whole idea was that you would drive home to a cabin that had like level 1 charging and leave your car sitting there at 0%. And so when a fire would start, you'd have to go, oh no, I've got to charge my car. And nobody ever does that.
And then what about the MLE auction? Did anybody else pick up any cool EV parts at the MLE auction? I got an EDN charger. There were lots of deals to be had. Some not so good deals either. It was a funny thing as the way auctions go.
How much did you pay for it?
I got, I'll say, 700 something bucks for the air-cooled EDN charger on the cart with power supply and the cords. So pretty slick. In my repertoire, I don't have any other 800 volt charger. So now I've got an 840 volt charger I'll be able to use for something should the need arise.
22 kilowatts. Put it all in way, that's what I was.
Yeah, a bunch of the stuff.
Including that.
Yeah,
I've been on that too, but
I know how much those are new, and I was like, where am I going to find an 800 volt charger?
They're like $10,000 new?
I forget. Yeah, they're thousands.
14.
Yeah,
14.
It's pretty.
Well, for the double water.
Did they ever get that thief?
Yeah, that sucks. So the very next day, this is something for you all to keep in mind if you ever have an estate sale or a funeral or a wedding or stuff, anything where information is published in the newspapers or out there into the world. of things going on. What happened, Pat came in to the shop the very next morning, luckily, extra early, because he realized, oh, we still have to wipe some of the data off of the computers. So he came in super early on the day after the auction to wipe the computers of the data. And there was a van pulled up and it had been broken into, and they were loading stuff up into the van. And so they presumed that somebody, when they had the auction open house, where just anybody could come on through, somebody cased it, looked at what all was there and how things were set up, and then watched the auction, because the auction shows, even if you don't bid, you can see what price everything sold for. And so then they went through and got the expensive items. Now, luckily, Pat came in early, so they could have gotten even more items had he not come in that early, but he tried to block in their van, and then they were able to wrangle it and get away though, and then he chased them up I-5 and called the police. The police said, oh, break off the chase and stuff. And he's like, I will when you get a squad car. How you know? But they wouldn't. So that's just the state of things that in the area we live in now, I guess. But so they wouldn't chase them down, and eventually Pat lost sight of them somewhere up north. So we don't know.
I don't know how they're going to fence
what happened. But yeah, I don't know. Some of the stuff was pretty unique that got sold, right? So if you like the crimping, the battery crimping tool. I mean, there's no way, like if that winds up in a pawn shop or something, there's no way anyone would ever have that. Yeah, I heard you got that. That really sucks. By the way, what happened, like, is insurance paying it, or does the auction reimburse you then, or like, what the heck? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The EValbum.com thing hasn't been updated. It's stuck for a long time. Does anyone know anything about it? It says it's moving to a new site, but it's been months and months and months.
That is unfortunate. No, somebody else brought that to my attention a few months ago, and that is sad. The EV album, not.
I have a couple of things real quick
Yes.
before people leave, if that's okay. I just wanted to share that our friends at Eco Auto Northwest, running you guys down there, you can see them. Great folks. They just announced today that they're changing their name. They decided to disassociate with the folks from Boston that are started the Eco Auto platform. And so they're going totally independent, and they're now called Revolve Motors. So Revolve spelled backward is EV Lover. So I can find them at that number. But then I also wanted to know if anybody here besides Ron has a Model 3 that they'd be interested in sharing, because there's money in it. It's our friends at Electric Car Insider have been doing this guest test drive event every year, and Kevin's participated in it several times because they want a Model 3. They don't have lots of Model Ys, they got other models too, but I can't get anybody to bring a Model 3. It's Saturday, May 2nd, and we're going to be out of town. It's at Olympic College in Bremerton, and they'll pay you $400 for bringing your car and showing it to people and letting them drive it.
Wow.
Just on a short test drive route.
Wasn't it? I thought it was 200.
It used to be 300 last year, and it was 200 the year before, and now it's $400.
Oh, hey,
next year. For like 6 hours of sharing your car. So just in case anyone, you know somebody with a Model 3 who wants to do it, May 2nd, there's money.
And do you let other people test drive it then?
Yes, you're in the car with them, and you show them how to operate it, and you just go on a short route, nothing crazy like that.
I have a Model 3.
You do?
Hey.
But let me check my schedule.
Yeah, check your schedule. Okay. Well, good. I will put it in the newsletter, or I can just forward this to you if you want.
Okay, so text me.
Okay.
Any other questions of the group at large? Micah, any other little update? For those who haven't seen it already, we put it out on the CEVA email list. General Motors is actually fully supporting the renovation of the only privately owned EV1. So how wonderful is that? I say it's about time, and that is some of the best news for EVs in a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 4 new wheels and a front windshield, huh?
Windshield.
And the
controller.
And a whole lot more.
What's the name of the YouTube channel with the long videos about it now?
Questionable Garage.
The Questionable Garage. So yeah, check out YouTube, Questionable Garage, EV1. You can see the in-depth stories there. You got any more to add or anything?
They just had another work day this last week, so there should be another video soon.
Cool.
Going over the repairs to the body
Cool.
and other stuff.
Okay, anybody have experience with the Aria?
Jeff Finn, and I drove Jeff's Aria with him down from here to Phoenix, Arizona a few years ago, so I have some experience.
It's like 380 horsepower.
Yeah, it was powerful. It was a nice vehicle. I liked everything about it pretty much. For me, the price, it would be like, well, I would get probably a Tesla just to not have the funny charge port. I forget if it had I think it had CCS, but it didn't have a NACS. And so I was like, I'd probably, for the price, if I was getting one. I don't know if they'd come down a lot to get a used one. I haven't checked. But yeah, maybe a used one, like it was a fine vehicle and really cool design inside. Yeah.
A friend of mine just bought an off-lease Aria with 5,000 miles on it, 23K.
Wow.
Wow.
We'll have one with 6,000 miles on it for sale at Revolve Motors in the next few days.
Are you at Revolve now?
Yes, and I was gonna tell my story, but we ran out of time.
Well, next month, let's have that. That's awesome.
Well, I talked one of my neighbors to buy one.
Cool. An Aria as well?
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's what you just said.
Educate, demonstrate, and proliferate.
Goodbye now.